Hello everyone. So recently there's been a big spike in anti-Asian racism and violence. And this in one respect is related to an actor, Josh McDermitt, who played Eugene on The Walking Dead. No, the actor is, to my knowledge, not a racist. No, I'm not making a comparison like that. But how Josh McDermitt has been treated by, well, by people, and how Asians have been treated most recently by people, it kind of coincides. And so let's talk about the actor first. So Eugene is a character from The Walking Dead, and he's a character that fans of The Walking Dead hate. Some of these fans, quite a few actually, have transferred their hatred of the character of Eugene to the actor that portrays Eugene, Josh McDermitt. So some people have even gone so far as to send him death threats, blaming him in that respect for the actions of his character, which he has no part in writing, which is just a character on television. It's a TV character. None of it's real. But these people, they're so irrational and so detached from reality that they treat it as though it is real. And this is it's not a new problem. It's existed since, there's been acting. Even before there was film and television, but people have become the numbers of people whom have become irrational enough to send an actor death threats because of the character they portray has increased. And so unfortunately, this actor has had to address the issue, I think more than once, and his life has been impacted negatively by it. I mean, as anyone's would be, if you started getting death threats, on my old channel, I had a conservative, right-wing, Nazi cop psycho who would just follow me around the internet, stalking me and trolling me. And eventually, he fucked off. But it's still, when you're going through it, it's still a, unpleasant experience. And it's very unfortunate, just because you make a video or just because you say something, or, I mean, yes, it depends upon what you're saying. Something, if you're saying something abhorrent, transphobic, homophobic, racist, sexist, any other kind of ist, yeah, I mean, you probably deserve to get, I mean, at the very least, pushback, if not canceled. Yeah, fuck it, cancel all these conservative assholes. I'm fine with that, because they're the root of most of the evil in this country, the United States at least. But anyway, so how does that relate to anti-Asian racism. Well, it's the same mentality. See, this anti-Asian sentiment that's been growing over the past year is due to, um, is directly linked and correlated to Donald Trump and to the pandemic. See, conservatives whom are obsessed with this idiot, Donald Trump, they don't, they will shift the blame to anyone to ensure that in their tiny little mindlet, um, their leader, their new Nazi messiah, is squeaky clean. He can do no wrong. So everything that happens as a result of all the stupid and horrible shit that he did, they have to try and deflect that away from him. And Donald Trump, being his own biggest fan and biggest defender, would also deflect. Now, it's true. The virus did originate in China. And it got as big as it got in part because of the Chinese government's lax attitude towards following its own regulations. After the last pandemic that came out of China, you have the Chinese government actually imposed certain restrictions, imposed you know, more stringent rules upon food handling, food preparation, and where food is taken from. You know, they wouldn't. They tried to prevent people from going to strange places and getting strange animals and eating them or selling them for other people to eat. So they created all these new regulations, and then as the years went on, the enforcement of these regulations became more and more lax until we got this outbreak. Now, that's China's part. Trump's part is gutting the CDC. Isn't it ironic how Trump guts, I mean completely, the CDC, and then we have this massive pandemic? It's no coincidence. One is a direct result of the other. Because if we had a strong CDC, we would have been able to combat this virus to the point where it may not have become, it wouldn't necessarily have become a pandemic. And certainly we would not have lost, what, 2 million people? We wouldn't have all of this death, and we wouldn't have to wear masks or any of this other shit. And then that coupled with Trump's inaction and his ignorance and just plain stupidity, all around stupidity, because of him and other leaders like Boris Johnson and other right-wing leaders across the planet, and yes, China, this became much bigger than it should have been. Than it really needed to be. I mean, it didn't need to happen at all, but when you take away your one line of defense against, a virus outbreaks and this kind of thing, yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to go out of control. And when you just say, oh, it's going to go away one day magically. Trump knew it was bad. We have him on fucking tape saying this is awful and it's going to be bad and lots of people are dying, But then when he goes on television, he says, oh, everything's fine, it's just going to go away. What? No. That's the head in the sand mentality, you know. And it proved that he doesn't give a fuck about anybody but himself and how he looks. Anyway, we know all that. So, because Trump is also a racist, he came up with a number of racist names for this pandemic. I will not repeat them, as they are disgusting, and I don't want to, you know, promote them by you know, saying them. But because Trump supporters' brains are the size of a peanut, and because they're all fucking lemmings, they would repeat this stuff. They took it into their tiny little mindlets, their tiny little brains, and they just regurgitated it back. And that action, Trump making it about race and not about government and not about him, by making it about race, he triggered all of the racists. These people whom are spewing this anti-Asian racism, they didn't just become racist because of the pandemic. It was always there. It's the same mentality. The same mentality that would attack all Asians because of a pandemic that came from a country that is primarily populated by Asians. The conservative mind isn't strong enough to discern Asian people from the government in China. So they just blame all Asians. Likewise, these dipshit fans of The Walking Dead, which is a terrible series outside of season 1, by the way, all these fans, instead of hating the character of Eugene and blaming that character, they hate and blame the actor, as if the actor is somehow responsible for what his character does. That you have right-wing conservatives here, conservatives in general, blaming Asians here for what the Chinese government did, or what they didn't do, specifically. And of course, because conservatives are stupid and they don't want to take responsibility for anything, because they lack anything resembling personal responsibility, they just ignore the fact that their party that they support, the Republican Party, basically made this pandemic 550,000 times worse through their inaction and through their gutting of the CDC and all this other shit. So it's the same detachment from reality. Although I think that the conservative racists, I think somewhere in the back of their tiny little minds know that this has nothing to do with Asians. It's just an excuse for them to attack people of Asian descent. You know, I thought the 21st century was going to be so much cooler, you know? Hover cars and hoverboards and, you know, biological, technological implants or something, you know. But it really is a dystopia, just like all those movies from the 70s and 80s said it would be, and 90s to a lesser degree. But, yeah, it's just, the thing about the internet is that it demonstrates exactly just how psycho and fucked up most of the fucking people out there are. And I think if one were to take anything from the internet, it should be that. So, yeah. Um, but this is what happens when you have elected officials, people in government, whom are racist. Them spewing racism and spewing transphobia and spewing homophobia and any other kind of phobia or ism. Them spewing it is going to embolden others who believe in that stuff or who want to believe it. It just gives them license to do it and be open about it. That's why we need, is an absolute necessity, that we stifle, we censor any speech, like hate speech, which can lead to people getting murdered. And you know, there are people who are going to go, well, you know, but and they'll try and section it out, well, you know, this type of speech doesn't hurt people, but this type of speech does, and, you know, whatever type of speech they want to engage in, you know, they'll try to protect. But no, this is the result of hate speech. Hate speech is racism, transphobia, homophobia, bigotry, basically. Hate speech is bigotry. And it must be censored. Because if it's not, even our government officials need to be censored when they engage in that shit. Because their actions, their statements of bigotry and hate speech have a direct and negative result upon the population of not only the United States, but the world. Right now, we have militias infesting the United States, whom are going out and murdering people and committing atrocious crimes against people because they've been emboldened by the United States government itself. Look at how the police, unelected, they should be elected, every single fucking one of them. But look at how the police treat right-wing protesters, the terrorists who attacked the nation's capital on January 6th. Look at how they were treated. They were given basically the key to the Capitol. The gates were opened for them. Look at how they were treated versus how Black Lives Matter protesters were treated. A distinct difference. Because most cops are conservative. And most conservatives are corrupt, racist, bigoted assholes. I'm not just saying this because of what I've seen on the internet. I've experienced it. I've lived it. It's not just a few fucking bad apples. Not when you see it in every place in this fucking country. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Bye.